Let's go to Douglas Sloan. He's a principal at National Capital Strategy Group. Douglas, why don't we start with the comments from the ambassador, gravely concerned about Asians being targets of racism here in the United States. We've certainly seen an increase of that since the pandemic began. How concerning is it?
Well, it's extremely concerning. Many people throughout the United States of America and throughout the world seem to want to lump all Asian people of different Asian country origins into that one group from Wuhan, or they seem to want to lump them all as Chinese. And first of all, it's unfair to Asian people of every descent to sit up there and try to think that, everyone comes from one country, or more specifically, one province of China, where this COVID sickness originated. But also to try to blame people of Asian descent, even if you were talking about just Chinese, for this sickness getting out and originating in China. No one has anything to do with that. So it really is ignorant. It's a horrible way to think. It's a horrible thing to do, to treat people in that way, to try to mass generalize people for what may have been the mistake of a few, or what, quite frankly, may have just been a horrible, naturally occurring mistake. And it's wrong, and it does fall into that bin of stereotypical racist behavior.
And speaking of this report, they are suggesting the creation of a commission with a mandate to scrutinize, monitor law enforcement. It's urging reforming policing to address racial stereotyping, the militarization of policing, and the lack of accountability from police agencies. A lot of the same kind of discussion that we've heard over the last year, but now it's coming from an international body. I want to get your reaction to their recommendations.
It's fantastic. This gives it more heft that it's coming from an international body. The UN is a very well-respected organization, and not only are they focusing in on the disparities in the treatment of Americans at the hands of police and law enforcement, but also their report examined disparities in treatment of blacks and people from African descent worldwide. So this is really a far-reaching report. It carries a lot of heft because it is coming from the UN, and it outlines the issue of racism that needs to be dealt with on a worldwide level. This isn't just an American problem. This isn't just an English problem. This is a problem that we have worldwide, systemic racism. And because it is a problem that has existed for centuries, it is something that we have to address aggressively. And all of that is outlined in the report.
Douglas, it's interesting you bring this up because, as you say, it's not just pointed at the U.S. One of the authors of this report talked about a woman in Latin America who protested. You always talk about George Floyd. Every day we have a George Floyd and nobody talks about it. And in many cases, we had George Floyds in the United States and people weren't talking about it. I mean, it was this video. There's no way you can turn your back on what was actually happening. Racism isn't just confined to the U.S. Will the increased dialogue, will an international body examining this really make a difference, do you think?
I believe it will. And the very interesting thing about this, like she said, she said they have George Floyds in South America all the time, in different countries in South America all the time. The interesting thing about this is here in the United States, Black people are very empowered because Black people have been through a lot in this country, obviously through slavery, through failed Reconstruction, through Jim Crow. The most destructive war in this country's history that had the most casualties was the Civil War, quite obviously, which is a war that was fought over the enslavement of Black people. So, and then we went on to, like I said, Jim Crow and the Civil Rights Movement. And the Civil Rights Movement in this country that was principally led by Black people, it's different than Black Lives Matter, principally led by Black people, changed the face of this nation. It changed the laws. It changed how people were forced to deal with people of African descent. So Black people in this country carry some weight. And so you are now able to see black people in other countries kind of lean on the shield, so to speak, of black people in this country to try to address the very same issues of systemic racism, of oppression, of institutionalized racism, racism in the institutions, and disparate treatment at the hands of police. They're able to work to address many of those issues that we're dealing with, obviously here in the United States, by kind of leaning on the movements that started here.
Right.
And so it is definitely working to everyone's advantage in terms of addressing those issues.
Well,
but there's a lot of work to be done.